Hi everyone, Victoria, Joanne, and I are looking forward to spending the next 15 or so minutes with you, discussing how we've understood distributed leadership theory as it applies to achieving buy-in from individuals within an organization to reach a common goal or vision. So as we began discussing topics for our leadership papers, it became pretty evident pretty quickly that there were commonalities that we would be able to draw from for the purposes of this project. My paper is focused on utilizing aspects from transformational and distributed leadership theories to involve campus stakeholders in creating a common vision and strategy at my institution. Victoria wrote about working with different constituents at her institution to implement a strategic plan, and Joanne focused her paper on creating opportunities for professional development for teachers within the field of early childhood education. So in fleshing out our papers a bit more, we realized that we kept coming back to the phrase buy-in and how achieving buy-in at our specific institutions and organization was necessary in order for our solutions to our problems of practice to be effective. This led us to search for an article or two that we could use as anchor articles to guide this presentation.
So as we introduce this concept of buy-in, I want to start with this quote from Research on Shared Governance and Gaining Buy-in During a Change Effort. While simple, it provides a scholarly definition of buy-in, which is considered to be a personal and professional commitment to actively engage in a process, task, or initiative. Now let's dig a bit deeper than that definition. Here we want to introduce the intellectual and emotional buy-in matrix, which came out of the Journal of Marketing Management. On the intellectual side, buy-in relates to understanding the goals. This means people within the organization comprehend the positive impact of the process, task, or initiative. Jumping over to the emotional side of buy-in, this highlights the commitment to achieve the goal. Now this visual depicts this intellectual and emotional buy-in matrix in more of a consumable way, indicating the higher the understanding and the commitment, the more advocacy you'll get. Whereas if there's a low level of understanding and commitment, you'll be engaging with weaker links within the organization who don't contribute to the achievement of the goal, whatever that goal may be. We really liked this matrix as a way of visually portraying buy-in in a more tangible way. The next step was to determine a proposed collaborative solution to help achieve this high understanding and high commitment, which brings us to our next slide.
When looking at distributed leadership, it is understanding how the work of leadership takes its place within the people in the organization. It is not looking at one leader, but mobilizing leadership expertise at all levels within one's organization. In these next set of slides, we will be addressing the important factors of distributed leadership. We will be discussing the importance of involving stakeholders, trust and confidence, and finally, communication.
So across the literature, involving stakeholders is a key aspect of a distributed leadership approach. And by involving stakeholders from all levels of the organization, you can create a deeper sense of buy-in. Going back to the intellectual and emotional buy-in matrix, that means a higher commitment and higher understanding of the initiative. For my problem of practice, that particular initiative is implementing a strategic plan. So I work for University College. We're the College of Continuing Studies at the University of Denver, and we're embarking on a new 5-year strategic plan. Now, it's important for us to build buy-in among employees around this plan and get everyone excited about the impending changes. In order to do this, I recommend applying a distributed leadership approach that involves stakeholders along the way. So what do we mean by involving stakeholders? This means giving stakeholders an opportunity to speak into the process and future direction of the organization. This could manifest in a variety of tactics, like leveraging surveys and focus groups to gather input, or having representation from all levels of the organization involved with the initiative. In my case, that might mean we have strategic planning implementation committees, and employees from across the organization are part of those committees. So there are copious amounts of research about involving stakeholders in the decision-making process to help build buy-in. And one of those articles was a case study of 4 Australian universities that applied a distributed leadership approach, an approach that they called collective collaboration. A group of researchers found that by allowing stakeholders to opt into a project based on their interest or expertise, opposed to official titles or positions, led to building buy-in and trust. Because higher education requires less hierarchy, these researchers highly recommend distributed leadership as a solution to building more collaborative working environments within the higher education sector. As one of our anchor articles about buy-in describes, employees will feel a deeper emotional commitment to the organization and its welfare if they feel engaged and that their contributions are being valued. This ties back nicely to the distributed leadership model and the need to involve stakeholders. So when applying a distributed leadership approach and involving stakeholders, there are some implications on the leadership research worth mentioning here. For example, there's opportunity to further explore the emotional impact this involvement may have on stakeholders, both personally and professionally. Are there higher rates of efficacy for stakeholders who see their ideas come to fruition? What is it about a distributed leadership approach that leads to higher job satisfaction and less turnover among employees? These are just some of the many areas of future research one could undertake. As for the implications of involving stakeholders on the leadership collaborative process, there are a few obstacles to be aware of. By involving more stakeholders, traditional leaders are essentially giving up control of the outcome. The final product may not be what they envisioned. Also, by involving more stakeholders in the process, it could also take longer to arrive at consensus. However, the benefits of involving stakeholders far outweigh the disadvantages. Scores of literature indicate the value of involving stakeholders in the decision-making process as a way to gain buy-in and build trust, which leads to our next identified trend.
Okay, so equally important to achieving buy-in through involving members of the organization in decision-making processes, establishing trust and commitment is integral in the distributed leadership model as well. In researching distributed leadership, trust, commitment, and confidence came up again and again as key tenets within the theory. As distributed leadership theory calls for members of the organization to be involved in the decision-making processes, it can only be effective if different individuals within a group recognize each other as leaders. Distributed leadership relies on individuals to work together as a team or several teams who share the responsibilities of the organization. Given this, trust, commitment, and confidence in the organizational leader and one's colleagues is imperative, as reflected by the two quotes you see now. In understanding these aspects of distributed leadership, it is not surprising then that this type of leadership has been identified and called upon as the primary leadership style within higher education. At the institution where I work, for example, we have working groups, committees, and task forces for everything. In theory, these are great, as the leadership seemingly has trust in us to make decisions about new initiatives, planning for major programming, and more recently, responding to critical incidents. While it's wonderful to work alongside my colleagues so frequently in this manner, there's rarely any follow-up with the recommendations created by these working groups, leading to frustrations of those of us who have taken such care and time to develop them, as well as feelings that maybe the senior leaders don't truly have confidence in our abilities to make decisions for the institution. This issue led me to use this problem as the focus of my paper, calling upon distributed leadership theory as a possible solution. In utilizing distributed leadership in a more targeted way, the senior leaders will be able to rely more heavily on its stakeholders to help in the goal-setting and visioning process, showing their level of trust and confidence in us, and valuing our thoughts and ideas to move the institution forward. In order to do this, I proposed rehauling the yearly retreat facilitated by the dean of the college. Each year, this event feels forced and without much direction, but if we used it instead to work on visioning and creating goals for the next year, for example, it could be a great use of everyone's time, while also helping stakeholders to develop closer collaborative relationships among the group and with the organizational leader. Doing so is integral in creating feelings of trust and commitment that everyone is working toward the same mutually agreed upon goals. So in conducting research for my paper, I found many articles on distributed leadership. In one particular article, a qualitative study was conducted at a large UK-based university to discover the factors that influence distributed leadership positively and negatively through evaluating team projects and the individuals involved in each team. Through their analysis of 10 different groups, 5 of which were top-down driven and 5 that were more horizontal and collaborative, the authors found that among other factors, regardless of the model, trust in the leader in the vertically structured groups and in each other in the horizontally modeled groups emerged as a salient factor to getting the job done well. As exemplified in the quote on the screen, the authors found that having trust among team members engenders feelings of confidence among the group, thus leading to stronger collective leadership. As noted by the authors, trust between team members fosters an atmosphere in which all team members can contribute to the leadership process. Likely not surprising, trust and confidence are essential components in distributed leadership and key to gaining overall buy-in. That said, implications within the research does exist. For example, it's worth further studying how to build trust among the group, as trust is not an automatic given. Furthermore, while we have our own assumptions on this, it would be worth studying even deeper the effect that collective trust and confidence has in not only achieving team successes, but also those of the larger organization. And third, does having trust in the group engender higher job satisfaction among organizational members, thus making them feel more valued and appreciated? What effect does it have on individuals' feelings about their organization if they're part of the larger visioning and goal planning process? And while Victoria discussed the obstacles that involving stakeholders may create, creating trust has a more positive implication on the collaborative process in gaining buy-in. By creating an environment where trust and confidence are revered and expected, communication between group members and between group members in the leadership will be improved. Better communication and stronger trust engenders more synergy among the group or among team members, thus leading to more buy-in to attain the shared goal. The literature on distributed leadership is vast and includes a deep dive into how trust and confidence are key elements of the theory and in achieving buy-in. As I've briefly touched upon, without communication, none of this is possible. So we'll now move on to our next trend, the importance of communication to achieve buy-in.
When we look at the word communication, what comes to mind? What do people mean by communication? What does it really mean to have good communication skills? Communication develops as an effective exchange of information between two or more people. When communicating, you are getting messages in by understanding and getting messages out by expression. When researching distributed leadership, an important factor is communication. Buy-in comes into play when in the organization, all leaders and employees establish an effective form of communication to be in the loop of all decision-making plans. With such effectiveness, we can result in achieving communication amongst all members and build trust as well. When communication is being effective, we see a connection of trust, collaboration, and effective listening from all levels of our organization. From our problem of practice, our main goal is having a better establishment of professional development. In the field of early childhood education, a children's ability to learn serves as a strong domain in an early childhood setting. In the field of early childhood education, ongoing professional development is truly important. Caregivers have to be knowledgeable in the changes in caregiving practices, strategies, and techniques. Working together on providing different opportunities in the organization can help provide better direction for the future. Connecting this with distributed leadership theory comes into play, where everyone is included and involved in the process of planning for future goals moving forward. With communication and applying a distributed leadership approach, there are opportunities that result in the implications on leadership research. Will there be success? If so, will the employees be included in such ideas? Will the high performance be put into effect? And will the collaboration be improved? With this, it is important in knowing how to build communication and understanding if the collaboration connected with it provides for a stronger performance in the organization. Looking into the implications of the collaborative process, this could result in gaining better trust as we are set to create an environment that establishes these factors. By doing so, communication results in more effectively as communication provides a deeper understanding and success for the organization in gaining buy-in and best for all members in the organization. With distributed leadership, it is important in building trust and a stronger communication as they serve as a positive impact in the organization.
So Victoria, Joanne, and I have presented how involving stakeholders, gaining trust and confidence among organizational members and between members in the leadership, and clear communication is integral are key aspects of distributed leadership and gaining buy-in. Without these factors, it will be extremely difficult for synergy to be found among the employees of the organization, for goals to be made, and ultimately for the organizational members to buy into the direction that the leadership would like to take the organization. Victoria presented how involving stakeholders provides them with a sense of agency and higher commitment, giving them an opportunity to speak into the process and future direction of the organization. I discussed how creating trust and confidence among the employees and with the leadership is integral in creating goals and shared vision, ultimately being involved participants in the organization. And Joanne presented the key role of communication within the organization to move it forward. While we feel that we've presented a thorough summary of each of these points, implications for the collaborative process and leadership research exist, which Joanne will now discuss.
As we look in the overall implications of leadership research as a group, we can conclude that involving stakeholders, trust, and confidence and communication tie into together as a form of distributed leadership. The implications we have towards leadership research help us identify that efficacy and success as to what is the outcome and desired result to all of this. We turn the tables and look into high job satisfaction and high performance in one's organization, and finally look into trust on how we can build up on it and collaborate together on the importance as to what is needed in one's organization and how we can communicate together to provide an organized and deeper understanding for the success of the organization.
So our findings clearly have an impact on the leadership collaborative process as well. Once an organization commits to a distributed leadership approach, there are a few implications. As a group, we found that involving stakeholders in a meaningful way, developing closer collaborative relationships among groups, and communicating more effectively can all go towards achieving buy-in and creating a more positive work environment. While formal leaders will need to accept that they'll be giving up some control, the trust that they can build within an organization can't be ignored. Another implication would be the potential for higher job satisfaction among employees. The majority of the literature we came across mentioned that organizations with deeper trust and buy-in created more synergistic environments that led to higher job satisfaction and less turnover. Overall, through a distributed leadership approach, institutions can expect higher performance from employees, taking the organization one step closer to achieving those objectives and goals. So we're going to leave you with our discussion question that we look forward to facilitating in the discussion boards. Here it is. Reflect upon a previous work experience where buy-in needed to be achieved. Were you working independently or as a team? How did you define buy-in? And what distributed leadership strategies, if any, did you use to accomplish this?
And finally, we leave you with our list of 10 references. Please feel free to use as many as you'd like to when addressing our discussion question, and we look forward to reading everyone's posts. Thanks so much.